Alright, so here is the third and final game in this DC Rainbow Draft tournament. Both me and my opponent are 2-0, so whoever ends up winning this game takes the grand prize, if you will. We're both going to get the same set of cards. I will just get one more if I win, or my opponent will just get one more if he wins. These prizes are actually pretty good, so both of us are a little bit tense because we both want to fight for both of those prizes. Looking at my opponent's team, I didn't get to watch him play it yet. I haven't seen him play it because I've been in my own games, but I've heard that he's been making short work of his opponents. So I know I have to worry. And looking at his team, I can see the portion of it that is giving some people the most trouble, and that is his basic action Power Bolt. I've talked a couple of times in these videos about the power of direct damage within Rainbow Draft format, and Power Bolt is an exact example of that. If someone brings Power Bolt, the best thing that you can possibly do is pick up 2 of them on turn 1 if you get the opportunity to. So I am mulling over my options, and it looks like I'm going to pick, I said 2 of them turn 1, but grab 1 of them turn 1. Obviously it costs 3, so you have to pay 1 in order to do so. And for some reason in my brain I thought it cost 2, so I re-rolled a sidekick. What I should have done is kept a sidekick. He actually ends up with the exact same roll that I had. Kept a sidekick and paid 3 to pick up a Power Bolt. Here's my opponent's team. He was sitting next to me during the draft, and he actually got to pull a super rare Zatanna. So he's been using that. He has the really good Dr. Light, which says your opponent's sidekicks cannot block while she's out. He's got the great 5-cost Gorilla Grodd. He's got a couple of other pieces like Static. I have that one as well. I don't foresee him buying Cosmic Treadmill. He could pick up Cyborg. Cyborg is a great blocking character. That Zoom is pretty interesting because it makes yours unblockable. Your non-sidekick characters, that is, unblockable, but I would pay 1 to ignore that effect. So he's got some interesting pieces, some fairly powerful pieces if he can put them together. Really, it's up to whether or not he's going to have a good buy order and sort of plan out his turns accordingly. And if he's 2-0, there's a good chance that he will. My opponent's basic actions include Power Bolt, which is deal 2 damage to 1 target character or player, and Big Entrance. Both cost 3. Power Bolt is extremely powerful in draft, so I wanted to pick up one of those immediately in turn 1 so that he could not buy those turn 2 and turn 3. If I did not buy it turn 1, then he would have been able to buy it his turn 1. I would have bought 1 turn 2, and then he would have bought the second on his turn 2, which is why I picked up 1 there. He had the better play, as I misplayed that very first turn. I don't have a sidekick out on the field, but I roll up my 4 dice and move on. So 4 energy, re-rolling 1 of those energy. I don't need the shield for any reason, but it comes on back. Gives me 4 to work with, and sadly the only option here is to buy another Power Bolt to starve out my opponent so that he does not basically just keep pinging me for 4 each time he can, or 2 each time he can. I now have that opportunity to do that, so I am a bit ahead. This is where the rubber meets the road, and I can finally see what my opponent's going to be purchasing. That super rare Zatanna is and can be pretty powerful, depending on how he uses it. Looks like he's going to feel the side, or he's going to move the sidekick. Re-rolls that die that fell off into his hands, fields the sidekick. I would assume at this point he's going to do something with those 3. That's the question. Looks like he's going to pick up a Static, which is that uncommon static that spins up anytime I roll 2 or more dice. So, reload my bag. Gonna redraw and see what I pull. 4 sidekicks. 1 sidekick lands, so I finally have some sort of board presence, but the question is, do I want that now? Because I was forced onto a different line of play by picking up 2 Power Bolts to prevent my opponent to do so, the question here becomes, do I pick up do I re-roll that sidekick and pick up a SRA, which I did re-roll the sidekick, pay 4. So that's an option. Or I could re-roll and purchase a character. Or I could feel that sidekick and purchase, like my opponent did, purchase a static for 3. I take the line of ramp, but it leaves me with 0 characters on the field and 0 characters in my bag. So I know in my turn 4 I am going to want to field something and have that out there for any sort of protection against attack. My opponent, of course, pulls and rolls the static right away on its level 3, so he has 6 damage on board already if he wants it, when he fields that, of course. He's got 3 energy to go with it. See how he chooses to progress with this energy. He's going to have to pay to field, so it's going to leave him with less energy than he can do with anything with, I believe. So he's going to pay to field. Leaves him with 2. Doesn't have a global to activate with either of those. Question is, does he want to push and attack? He is going to push and deal me 6, dropping me to 14. Those will go to used. Those other 2 dice will eventually go to used. He didn't have a mat, so he was moving things off of the side there. Rolling up power bolts. So I could keep this or I could re-roll it. To deal him 2 damage is nice. And because I have the advantage on power bolts, I can do that more often and at a quicker pace than he can. So I go ahead and do that. Deal him 2 and pick up a static of my own. Because he full swung there, there was no need for me to try and roll sidekicks. I took that damage already, and there was no point in keeping a sidekick for something that's going to take a while to develop again. He deals me 2 right off the bat, dropping me to 12. So already I'm at a pretty big disadvantage, dropping me to 12. He's got 3 energy. He's buying a Zatanna with it. He puts Zatanna back. Let's see. He's instead going with big entrance, popping that into the bag, and ending his turn because he has nothing to do, obviously, to attack with there. So, 4-cost mask is what I'm pointing out. I'm not sure what I'm pointing out there. I have 4 energy. 4 dice, excuse me. 4 dice end up with 4 energy. Look at that. It's interesting. Sidekick to field, could re-roll that. It might be better to re-roll that and just search for energy. The other option is pay 4 here for something and have something in the field for blocking. He has not purchased that Dr. Light. That makes my sidekicks basically nullified. So as of right now, that is serving as a blocker, or it could serve as a blocker if I choose not to re-roll it. Counting what I have left in the bag, I've got 1 power bolt, I've got 1 SRA, and I've got 5 sidekick dice. So for a total of 7. Oh, scratch that, and I have 1 static. Total of 8 dice in the bag. So there's no huge, I guess it's a 1 in 8 probability next turn that I pull an SRA. He has no characters fielded, so if I do pull an SRA next turn, then I'm rolling 3 dice, unless he fields a character this turn, and chooses to KO it. I go ahead and move forward and buy a power ring for 4. He pulls the big entrance that he purchased earlier. I also fielded my sidekick as some possible blockers. Shakes up his dice, and he pulls that static yet again. Does not roll the static, though. He's got big entrance. He's got 4 energy to work with that big entrance. It actually behooves him here to not re-roll that character, because in re-rolling his character and it coming up a character face, you basically lose the ability to purchase things. You don't have the energy to take advantage of the discount. So he has an interesting decision. Does he want to have more characters or a character on the board, or does he want the discount ability? Looks like he's going to go ahead and keep, pay for a Dr. Light, reduce cost, and popper in the bag. He stays with a fist in his reserve pool. I pull 4 out. Don't pull that SRA, so that's still in the bag. So I'm guaranteed to have that next turn, which means I can plan around that accordingly. Unfortunately for me, I will soon not have the ability to block with sidekicks if that Dr. Light lands. So I have to think about that and sort of weigh that possibility in the future. Fielding my static for free and picking up another static for 3. So the moment my opponent's turn starts and he rolls his first set of dice, that static will spin up. Did not pull the Dr. Light. I can't tell. I don't think he did. Looks like he didn't. He did not. He does have a decent amount of energy. Four energy of any varying type. Where does he want to go with 4 here? The interesting thing for him is he's got me at a disadvantage on life, but I've gained the board. So I'm not sure exactly where his play is going from here. Paying 4 for a Batgirl. Basically just stock up on characters, try to burn me out with the 1 power bolt that he has, get some free damage in if he can. A little error there. Re-rolling. And end up with 6 energy. So I could purchase a Grodd here. That would be the best time for it. Rolled and re-rolled and did not land the SRA, so I'm going to have to work through the bag slowly. The other option here is to pick up a second SRA and let 2 energy burn. But I think the better play is to buy a Gorilla Grodd. Have that work its way into the bag. He does not have any crossover characters available. And now he's rolling a Dr. Light. He hits me for 2. Chooses not to re-roll the Dr. Light. And is going to do something with 4 energy. I wonder what. It might have been a misplay not to re-roll that Dr. Light. At the same time, I only have 1 sidekick in the field, and its ability, Dr. Light's ability to make that not have the ability to block, I guess you can say, is not necessarily that powerful right now. So maybe he has another line that he'd like to take, and he does. He's going to pick up a Cyborg, pop that over into his used, and back over to me. I'm going to refill my bag and slowly work back through the big bag full of stuff. Ooh, that is an interesting roll. a two generic. Basically everything that is there is something that I don't want. I would love energy and more dice, and I have 3 sidekicks and 2 generics. So that's probably, well, I could keep the sidekicks though if I wanted to do that. That wouldn't be a terrible thing. If that does come up as an SRA, I would roll 3 dice. So I'd be keeping the sidekick and rolling, keeping all 3 sidekicks and rolling 3. But I am going to re-roll that. I will keep the sidekicks though, and it comes up as 2 generic. So that's such an interesting roll. Ending up with 4 sidekicks. Now the nice thing about that is it gets them out of the bag, at least for right now, almost permanently. He has no real way of clearing those unless I choose to block with them. And he has a Dr. Light, so at this point, those are basically just kind of sitting out off to the side, not going to be doing much. I could hit my opponent here. I could hit for 4, 5, 6. Should be, that static should be spun up all the way. I've been misplaying and not spinning it up. The 2 generic will burn. My opponent refills his bag. His bag is as saturated as mine is. Luckily for me, I guess, I now have a less saturated bag with 4 sidekicks out of it. He has a great pull here. He pulls Dr. Light and he pulls Batgirl and rolls them both. Has the exact amount of energy to pay to field both of them. All of my sidekicks are nullified in blocking. And he could, I guess, swing through. And, oh, it looks like he is going to swing both. Interesting choice to swing both. By swinging with Dr. Light, he gives me the opportunity to allow that to cycle, I'll take that damage, and so I'll take 3. Static gets KO'd, Batgirl gets KO'd, and now I don't have to worry for several turns. I'm not going to have to worry for several turns about not being able to block things. And this may have backfired on him because I just rolled 2 statics, and I didn't roll the Power Bolt there. That would have been nice too. He's got me at 7 though. Pay 2 generic to field all of my characters, and now I have a huge board advantage. Question here is, do I want to send any of those characters into his face? And it's an interesting question, because if I choose to attack and somehow he cycles through his bag faster than I'm assuming, or faster than I do, or I don't roll these characters back when they come back around, then I may pay for it because Dr. Light comes back out, nullifies my blockers of the sidekicks. But I know I need to deal some damage. I need to keep the life totals close, especially because I know he has at least 1 Power Bolt, and he's been hitting it literally every time. So I'm kind of at one of those spots where I don't have a lot of room to play around. So the option here, I can hit him for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, somewhere around 10 damage, depending on what that Power Ring stat line is. It's a very tough decision. The other option is, so I know Grodd is coming out. If I hit him with all of this and then I land Grodd on its 7 face, then I win. So that's what I'm thinking about. Do I want to take the chance here? It's a risky line of play, but it provides a next turn victory, because I will be rolling Grodd next turn. If I commit all of those characters minus the 1 static to attack and hit his face, and I roll a Grodd next turn on its top face, then it's game over. If I commit everything and I roll Grodd on any of its faces, it's game over. But I take the most conservative line. I attack with 2 of my characters, dealing him damage down to 11, putting our life totals a lot closer to each other. And I know I also have Power Bolts, 2 Power Bolts, or just 1 Power Bolt in the bag. 2 total. He lands another Power Bolt, lands one of his 2 characters. I wonder if he's going to want to reroll anything. But I know he's got at least 2 damage. Luckily for me, he does not have Dr. Light. If he had Dr. Light out right now, if he had not rolled attacked with Dr. Light earlier, then this would be game over. If that character comes up. And it does come up. So that would have been game over, I believe, if he had not attacked with Dr. Light. He pays to field there and fields for free static. Of course, if he had Dr. Light out there, then that last attack phase from me would have gone much differently. So I'm down to 5. His bag is getting fairly close to cycling. I have a Power Bolt and Grodd, and I pull a Grodd. Power Bolt's still in there. Looks like a sidekick might still be in there. No, all sidekicks are out. I do land Grodd. I land him on his 4/4 side, I believe. So at this point, I'm just rolling for more sidekicks. Don't get them. I get some bolts instead. So pay 1 to field. So I have 4 direct damage. I'm going to use Grodd's Global to spin one of my sidekicks down into my reserve pool onto its, not shield face, what is it? Onto its fist face. So I have 3 energy. Things are very tense at this point. I could purchase a Wonder Girl for 1 generic. I could buy a Huntress for 3. Going to swing forward with Grodd, and I'm going to buff Grodd for 1, dropping my opponent to 6. So taking 5 life, putting him at 6. I have 2 bolts in reserve. Doesn't look like anything's going to happen with those bolts. My opponent has a crazy opportunity here to finish, but he only has a cyborg and a sidekick. Both of we've been going back and forth, and depending on what we pull or what we roll, these past couple of turns are really close. So he's weighing the options that he has. He can re-roll. Obviously, he wants to keep an energy to field his cyborg. He could re-roll for another sidekick. Have 2 sidekicks. He's also thinking about attacking here, I would assume. I have 4 on board. He will have 4 on his board. He's going to re-roll his cyborg, though. His cyborg spins up to a higher level, so that's a great break for him. Puts it on its 3/6 side, so it will not be KO'd by anything. He can commit his board to attack and feel fairly safe in keeping most of his board alive. So he fields and then chooses not to attack. I had 2 energy to do with whatever I needed to, but I didn't have any. There are no globals that I could have activated on his turn, so just chose not to attack on his part. Have a power bolt in hand. Let's see if I can land that. Power bolt does not show up. Static shows up. His cyborg, or it's not cyborg. His static spins up there. And I do land a power bolt, so that's going to drop him to 4, unless I want to land it on a character. So that's another decision that I have to make. What am I going to be pulling in the next turn or 2? What is my opponent going to be pulling in the next turn or 2? At the moment, though, at this moment, it looks like pinging him in the face is the best option. Dropping him to 4. I have 5 on board to his 4, so I could swing with everything and have a sidekick go through. That would drop him to 3. I could buff said sidekick with a fist. That would drop him to 2. That would also most likely decimate my board and give him a win next turn. So don't have lethal, in other words. Best play there is to end the turn, but it's always important to check to see if there is something that can be done. The nice thing about keeping that fist is that I can also apply it when blocking. So if there's something that I would like KO'd, then I can block and buff something by +1A. Rolls a sidekick and 3 energy. Gonna keep the sidekick. Reroll and just get more energy. None of that looks particularly useful. So he's gonna pick up a second big entrance. At this point, buying is probably not good, especially buying something that's going into the bag, because you're just hoping for that power bolt or for that one die that's going to kind of flip things. And speaking of power bolt and Grodd, so here if I land power bolt or that Grodd, it's game over. So that was a tense match. All I have to do there is field the Grodd. He does not have a crossover character. I hit him with power bolt, dropping him to 2. Swing forward with that Grodd, and that hits him for an additional 4. He does not have a crossover character. We check for Cyborg. Cyborg is not crossover. So that is the game. That was an extremely well-played matchup by my opponent. Ended up just barely nudging him out there at the end. So I end up the tournament at 3-0. Get to take home the total grand prize. It was a lot of fun. This was a really, really tense, higher level tournament than I've been in a while. So I hope you guys enjoyed these videos. I know I enjoyed playing the games. Thanks for watching, guys.